I'm Matt McClure, and this is Currents. A clerk in a small New York town refuses to grant marriage licenses to same-sex couples on religious grounds. Now, one such couple is taking her to court. Plus, after a devastating fire, a local charity rises from the ashes.
I mean, we have our 9 mothers and babies who were in a very safe place to put their lives back together, who are now scattered in shelters.
And vocations and volleyball? Both are served every month in Douglaston, Queens.
We want them, certainly first and foremost, to deepen their relationship with God, and then to strengthen the bonds between each other.
Good evening. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. It may be a case that could be a benchmark for New York's same-sex marriage law. A same-sex couple is suing a town clerk in upstate New York for refusing to issue them a marriage license. The clerk, Rosemarie Belforti of Ledyard, New York, had announced that she would not issue any marriage licenses and that a deputy clerk in her town would handle it by appointment. Belforti told the New York Times, quote, "God doesn't want me to do this, so I can't do what God doesn't want me to do." So when 2 women showed up looking for a marriage license, they were told they had to wait for the deputy clerk. And now they're suing. For more on this, I spoke earlier today with Dale Schoengert of the Alliance Defense Fund, who represents the Ledyard town clerk. Dale, thanks so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your time, sir.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Well, first of all, let's cover kind of the basics of this case. The town clerk there in Ledyard, Rosemarie Belforti, she has decided not to issue marriage licenses because of her opposition to same-sex marriage. Now, a deputy will handle those cases of folks coming in wanting to get marriage licenses by appointment only. Is this kind of, as it's billed, as a case of civil rights versus religious rights, or not?
I don't think it is. No New Yorker should be denied the right to a reasonable religious accommodation in the workplace. New York law doesn't require an employer or employee to choose between their religious beliefs and the law when there's a reasonable way to accommodate. And here there is. No one's civil rights are being denied. It's important to recognize that Ledyard issues about 4 marriage licenses per year, so it's not a big part of what they do. And the solution they came up with, which I think is perfectly reasonable, is to say, listen, a deputy clerk is going to now issue all marriage licenses. Same-sex, opposite-sex couples just call, make an appointment. They'll get the paperwork done. But that way, no one's rights are violated, and Rosemarie does not have to violate her conscience or sincerely held religious beliefs.
Sure. And not being, as familiar with all of the legalese that's in the bill as it's written, does the law require the town clerk or other, marriage license granting official in a particular town to handle that responsibility themselves, or does it allow them to hand it off to someone else? Like, say that the town itself just has to offer the marriage license. It doesn't have to be a particular official. So then she would be well within her rights to do what she's doing.
That's exactly right. New York law specifically allows clerks' duties in regard to marriage licenses to be delegated to a deputy clerk. And so that's exactly what the town has done. And I think that's a reasonable solution that should really satisfy everyone. It's disappointing that the same-sex couple, they live in a different town and are supported by a kind of a public interest organization called the People for American Way that is on the left. And I think this seems to be an issue of targeting our client and trying to bring this up, even though it didn't have to be. This is, I think I think a reasonable accommodation, and it's unfortunate that it's made so much publicity because it really didn't need to be.
Yeah. So in your opinion, the same-sex couple's argument here is kind of a moot point since marriage licenses are still available there in the town.
That's right. They would be able to get a marriage license just like anybody else in the town. Wouldn't be treated any different in any regard. So this is the town and Rosemarie Belforti trying to reconcile her sincerely held religious beliefs with the law. This is a marriage. Obviously, has been defined as a union of man and woman for millennia, and New York changed that in the flash of an eye, but it kind of caught these clerks off guard. So they're doing their best to accommodate religious beliefs while still following the law, and I think that's exactly what this town has done, and done a good job at it.
Sure, and I can't, ask you to speak for Ms. Belforti here as far as, her initial reaction to all of this as it went down, but through your interaction with her, speaking with her, do you know if she really kind of expected to cause such a stir, I guess, or maybe a media stir anyway, when she made the decision to not offer those licenses herself?
Not at all, because it's important to point out she quietly asked her town board for this accommodation. Didn't issue a press release or go to the press. She was trying to make this a non-issue, really, and just have this happen without too much affair. And then apparently someone in the town, or whether it's, we don't know who it was, didn't like the idea, and then that's what caused the publicity. Yeah, Rosemarie figured this would be an easy accommodation, a good way to reconcile the issue, and it's unfortunate it's been made such a public affair. This is a small town. She's a small town clerk and does this as a part-time job and in large part a service to the community. So she's really in the public limelight, which she's not used to and didn't seek.
Sure. And quickly here, Dale, just before we wrap up, where does the case go from here? Where does any possible litigation go from here, and what do you expect the outcome to be?
Well, it's unclear whether there will be any litigation. The same-sex couple that applied for the license and then ended up not wanting it or not coming back for an appointment. It's unclear what they're going to do. Like I said, they can get a marriage license if they want one in the same way as anyone else. So whether they're going to file a lawsuit is unclear, but we represent Rosemarie, and if there is a lawsuit, we'll certainly defend it, and hopefully the courts will uphold this right to have your job and your religious beliefs where reasonable accommodation can be made.
All right, Dale Schoeninger, legal counsel with the Alliance Defense Fund. We thank you so much for your time today, sir. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure, anytime.
Thanks. Stay with us. There's more currents ahead. Remembering a beloved archbishop and a national figure. We'll have that and the rest of the day's headlines next. Welcome back to Currents. I'm Matt McClure. Coming up later, faith served up in a much different way. First, though, let's have a look at the day's headlines. Some sad news out of New Orleans today. One of the country's most well-known and popular archbishops has died. Archbishop Philip Hannon, who may be best known as the host of the news program Focus, passed away this morning in his sleep. He was 98 years old. Born in Washington, D.C., Hannon was an auxiliary bishop there and a confidant of President John F. Kennedy. He delivered the eulogy at the funerals for both President Kennedy and his brother Robert. Hannon was appointed Archbishop of New Orleans in 1965. He worked to get affordable housing built for the poor and elderly and was an outspoken opponent of abortion. He was also an ardent supporter of the NFL's New Orleans Saints, a team that began play during his tenure there. Archbishop Hannon's death came on the 46th anniversary of his appointment as Archbishop of New Orleans. He was the oldest archbishop in the U.S. Well, turning now to Washington, President Obama says the constitutionality of the Defense of Marriage Act, or DOMA, will be settled fairly soon. Obama was asked about the act during a roundtable discussion of issues important to the Latino community.
I can only say what I believe, and that is that DOMA doesn't make sense. It's unfair. I don't think that it meets the demands of our Constitution. And in the meantime, I've already said that I'm also supportive of Congress repealing DOMA on its own and not waiting for the courts. The likelihood of us being able to get the votes in the House of Representatives for DOMA repeal are very low at this point. So truthfully, the recourse to the courts is probably going to be the best approach.
Last week, U.S. Bishops' Conference President Archbishop Timothy Dolan told Obama that his administration's decision to not defend DOMA in court would undermine marriage and create a serious breach of church-state relations. DOMA defines marriage on the federal level as between a man and a woman. Well, meanwhile, a long-awaited court decision on Alabama's controversial immigration law. A judge has allowed some provisions of the law to stand while blocking other parts of it from taking effect. The ruling allows the state to enforce key provisions of the law, including allowing police to detain anyone who cannot provide proof that they are in the U.S. legally. Alabama Governor Robert Brantley claimed victory on Wednesday.
Judge Blackburn upheld the majority of our law and temporarily, and I say temporarily, enjoined only 4 sections. With those parts that were upheld, we have the strongest immigration law in this country. I believe that all sections of our law will be upheld, and I will continue to work with our Attorney General, Luther Strange, as we await Judge Blackburn's decision on the temporary injunctions and, if necessary, our appeals to a higher court.
Among the provisions the judge blocked is one that prohibits the concealing, harboring, and transporting of undocumented immigrants. Several Alabama religious leaders had sued, arguing that the law would make it a crime to follow God's command and be good Samaritans. Well, closer to home here, a church in the Bronx says it will take its case to the country's highest court. The Bronx Household of Faith is asking the Supreme Court to review a lower court's ruling that would prohibit the church from holding services on school property. Currently, around 60 churches use New York public school auditoriums and classrooms after school and on weekends. At the United Nations, the Vatican again weighed in on the global economy. Rome Reports has those details.
The Vatican Secretary for External Relations, Dominique Mamberti, addressed the UN's General Assembly, saying that the world economy was lacking a code of ethics.
Ethics is not an external element to the economy, and the economy has no future if it has no moral element. In other words, the ethical dimension is crucial to tackle the economic problems.
He also noted that the lack of responsibility and morality in today's economy leaves an unfair burden on future generations.
The economy therefore needs ethics in order to function properly. Not any ethics whatsoever, but an ethics centered on the person and able to offer prospects for new generations.
This speech is the latest development in a string of warnings by the Vatican, calling for a revision of the global financial system in order to fix any unfair distortions. The speech was heard by different members of the UN's General Assembly. However, the Vatican is only a permanent observer at the organization and holds no voting powers when it comes to resolutions.
The head of the pro-life organization Priests for Life is asking his supporters to be respectful. Supporters of Father Frank Pavone have been protesting outside parishes in the Diocese of Amarillo, Texas, since the bishop there recalled Father Pavone. Now, Bishop Patrick Zurich, in a letter to fellow U.S. bishops, raised questions about Priests for Life's finances and Pavone's obedience to his bishops. Pavone has taken his case to the Vatican. He's raised the possibility of transferring to a different diocese or starting his own religious order. Well, changes are coming to the world of Catholic media. The founder and editorial director of the Catholic news agency Zenit has resigned. Spanish journalist Jesus Colina says his decision to step down came as a result of problems with trust and transparency with Zenit's sponsoring organization, the Legionaries of Christ. Colina says legionary officials were less than candid about the details of a scandal involving a legionary founder, Father Maciel. An investigation revealed that Maciel sexually abused seminarians and fathered at least one child. Well, meanwhile, it was a time to celebrate at the Vatican for the 80th anniversary of Vatican Radio. The Vatican Secretary of State was the main celebrant for a Mass for the anniversary. The feast day for the Vatican Radio is today, which coincides with the feast of St. Gabriel, the patron saint of communications. Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez, meantime, dismissing news reports that he is in the hospital now for kidney failure. Chavez phoned into a program on Venezuelan state television saying that he was doing well after a Miami newspaper reported that Chavez was rushed to a hospital following kidney failure. Chavez has been receiving chemotherapy and he now claims to be cancer-free. Back in the summer, the Venezuelan leader participated in a ceremony of the anointing of the sick at the Military Academy of Caracas, the country's capital. And there's no talking in class, we all know that, but what about saying God bless you after someone sneezes? Well, students at one California high school may be thinking twice about that after a teacher lowered a test grade 25 points after a student said God bless you when a classmate sneezed. The teacher defended the bless you ban.
The blessing doesn't really make any sense anymore. When you sneeze, in the old days, they thought you were dispelling evil spirits out of your body. So they were saying, God bless you for getting rid of the evil spirits. But today I said, really what you're doing doesn't make any sense anymore.
Everybody has the right to their own beliefs, but they don't have rights to impose those beliefs on other people, especially not school children.
He realizes there's other better ways to do that, and we don't condone, that type of punishment.
The teacher says he will not hesitate to discipline students again, just not in the same way. Well, stay tuned. There's much more currents ahead. Coming up, a Christian charity reaching out to young Brooklyn moms presses on with their work after fire damages their building.
We haven't calculated the loss yet, but it's terrific.
Welcome back. Well, the fire last week at an auto supply store on 4th Avenue in Park Slope, Brooklyn, affected more than just that auto store business itself. It also forced a neighboring charity, Park Slope Christian Help, or otherwise known as CHIPS, out of its location. Well, now that charity, which has been an institution in the neighborhood since 1972, is itself looking for help.
On Friday, September 23rd, about 12:15, there were about 100 people having a hot, nutritious meal, and the fire alarm went off.
Everybody vacated the building, the mothers and babies, the homeless who were eating, the staff, and everyone went outside and discovered that Dankin Auto Supply next door was on fire. It ended up being a 5-alarm fire. The firemen were here for over 24 hours because they were afraid the fire was going to keep going.
And the firemen came through our building with their hoses, the second floor, the first floor, in order to go out on our roof and to put out the fire.
So that meant that they had to drag their hoses through our building, knock out windows, knock off bars, and we got tremendous smoke and water damage, and walls were actually knocked down because the firefighters were afraid the fire was going to break through, so they started tearing down some of the walls.
Right after the fire, there's a warehouse, and they came over and they said we could bring all the mothers and babies over there, and they kept them there till 9:30 at night. We are a soup kitchen and a shelter.
We provide 6 days a week hot, nutritious, home-cooked meal to between 2 and 250 people.
Upstairs on the top 3 floors, we have a residence for young teenage pregnant mothers and their newborns and their toddlers.
They get training, they get their children in daycare, they apply for housing, and then we help them on their way.
Thank God no one that I knew of was hurt. We haven't calculated the loss yet, but it's terrific. We had to throw out over $2,000 worth of food that were in our freezers. And then in the mother's residence, we have to throw out all the mattresses, the baby's cribs, and the blankets, linen. All of that was lost. The 200 to 300 people that we feed a hot, nutritious meal every day will not be able to come here.
They've been great to me. I used to come here a whole lot when I lost my job. I lost my job, and they saved me.
We are doing bag lunches downstairs, but our people are used to having a nice hot lunch every day, and we can only offer them sandwiches.
This is like some of our guests, their only place to eat, so without us, they can't eat.
We're trying to get all the mothers and babies into one shelter. We've called the mayor's office, we've called the senators and all in the city to come and help us to try to find a shelter for these 24 people.
I mean, we have mothers and babies who were in a very safe place to put their lives back together, who are now scattered in shelters.
Because they were homeless when they came in here, so finally they found a home and now they're out. We really need finances because we can't take any food right now.
We know that there are going to be things not covered by the insurance policy. We know there's going to be things that fall through the cracks. And like every nonprofit agency, our donations, while they've still been coming in, have not been at the level that they were before the economic downturn.
We're going to get back, but we don't know when.
We hope that the Park Slope community, which is so supportive of this agency, will step up and help us.
I'm sorry to hear about it. You know, it's a shame. You know, I just hope they don't cut it. I just hope they don't cut it.
Some very dire times there, and we'll actually put some more information about CHIPS and the link to donations and all of that over on our blog. So check it out, currentsny.net. Stay with us. There's more Currents coming up. When we return, finding your vocation through volleyball? The Diocese of Brooklyn courts young adults in a unique way.
I hope that young people take away from tonight's event the experience and the encounter with Christ in a way that maybe they haven't before.
Well, finally tonight, many of us probably start thinking about the weekend on Thursday. I know I do. But as we head into October, that means two things: the baseball playoffs and the second month of the NFL season. But for a significant portion of the population, the weekend can also mean something decidedly less sporty: church. And while some may look at sports and the church as kind of competing for attention, especially on Sunday, the Diocese of Brooklyn has figured out a way to bring those two things together, to bring young people together.
Tonight we're here at the Immaculate Conception Center for an event sponsored by the Vocation Office and the Office of Faith Formation for the Diocese of Brooklyn, where we had some youth and young adults come for a holy hour and some fellowship, and behind me I believe you can see that they're playing some volleyball.
It's great to have things like this every month where we can have, kids from, around other schools, come together, play volleyball, first, go to chapel.
What really got me here was Jesus, like when they said that we're going to have the holy hour with him. So, I don't know, just his environment itself brings a lot of blessings. So I found this as a good opportunity to find blessings here tonight.
We give thanks to God for this gathering tonight. We'll spend some time in silence as we enjoy him with the very gifts of our lives. Young people tonight are here because they are in love with the Lord Jesus, and they've been touched all throughout their lives from the moment of their baptism. They've been touched in so many powerful ways that they wanted to come here tonight and join other people their own age to give them that praise and worship that he so rightly deserves. And the hope is, after having these holy hours on a monthly basis, that more young people will come here, be touched by the Lord, and then they could respond to whatever vocation that God has in store for them.
I wanted to be with Jesus, and I discovered that being in the presence of the Blessed Sacrament is the most beautiful thing in the world. So, the volleyball, oh, we're winning. It's great.
The reason why we have the volleyball and the fellowship is because we want them, certainly first and foremost, to deepen their relationship with God, and then to strengthen the bonds between each other. Hopefully through volleyball, hopefully through just, hanging around together, they can kind of share their experiences and be touched by the example that the other is to them.
I hope that young people take away from tonight's event the experience and the encounter with Christ in a way that maybe they haven't before. And I hope that they take that with them as they move on to college and after college, and they make that part of their spiritual journey.
Like a lot of fun there. I haven't played volleyball in years. I used to be kind of halfway decent at volleyball, but I haven't played in a long, long time. And I know I can see you right through the TV, through the magic of TV. I can see you kicking yourself for missing that event. All right, yes, I can see that. Well, instead of feeling sorry for yourself, just make sure and go ahead and attend the next one. Yeah, play some volleyball. That's right. The Holy Hour, the Fellowship, and even the volleyball going to be happening every month. So for more information, you can reach out to the Vocations Office of the Diocese of Brooklyn or just drop us a line. Our email address is dropusaline@currentsny.net, and we'll point you in the right direction. Well, that is it for this edition of Currents. Now, coming up tomorrow, they're not runaway brides. They're actually taking to the streets for a good cause. We'll have that and much more tomorrow night. For all of us here at Currents, I'm Matt McClure. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great night.